My parents said they wouldn't attend my wedding. Our sister's birthday is more important. Your marriage is an embarrassment? My sister laughed. A plumber husband and a DIY ceremony? How tragic. I smiled and said, fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. On the wedding day, a crowd gathered, cameras flashed, and my parents came running, panicked and out of breath. Mornings in Boston always begin quietly. Elizabeth Monroe gazed out the museum window, sighing deeply as she looked at the snow-covered common garden. Elizabeth? How is the display for the new arrivals coming along? Curator Martha called out to her. Elizabeth turned around with a gentle smile. It will be complete once I place the last 2 paintings. We'll be ready for this weekend's opening. She was in her 8th year as a museum curator. Her career at the Boston Museum of Contemporary Art brought her a quiet sense of fulfillment. The respect from her colleagues and the trust of visitors were based on her knowledge and insight. But when she returned home, all of that lost its meaning. Elizabeth's cell phone rang. It was a message from her mother. Family dinner tonight at 7. Christina has news about her promotion. Don't be late. She stared at the screen and sighed again. Her reply was brief. Understood. This was the typical exchange between her and her parents. That evening, Elizabeth stood in front of the Monroe family mansion. Her father Robert was a renowned businessman in real estate development, and her mother Patricia was a pillar of Boston's high society. For them, success meant social status and financial power. Elizabeth, you finally arrived. Patricia greeted her at the door. Her mother's eyes held that familiar hint of disappointment. That outfit? Did you come straight from the museum? Elizabeth looked down at her simple pantsuit. I wasn't told it would be a fancy party. Well, family gatherings are just as important as parties, Patricia said, lightly embracing Elizabeth's shoulders. Christina is already here. Your sister is absolutely radiant. In the living room, Father Robert and Christina were laughing together. Christina was dressed in a Gucci dress with perfect makeup, standing next to her father. Since she had begun building her career at a Wall Street investment bank, her parents' attitudes had become even more obvious. Elizabeth was not the talented daughter. You're here. Christina turned with a dazzling smile. Listen. I've been promoted to associate director at Warren Investments. I'm the first person in their history to reach this position in their 20s. Robert smiled proudly. The star of our family. I'm truly proud of you, Christina. Elizabeth hugged her sister with a smile. Congratulations, Christina. That's wonderful. The dinner, as usual, was filled with stories of Christina's success and Robert's business prospects. Elizabeth's work at the museum was dismissed as merely a nice hobby. Elizabeth, don't you think it's time to consider a serious career? Patricia said while pouring wine. Art is wonderful, but there must be a place where your talents could be better utilized. Perhaps at your father's company. Mother, I'm satisfied with my work, Elizabeth answered calmly but firmly. And I have something to tell you. The table grew quiet. Elizabeth casually raised her left hand, showing a simple but beautiful engagement ring. Michael has proposed to me. And I've accepted. After a moment of silence, Christina stared intently at the ring. What? You're marrying that plumber? He's not a plumber, he's a plumbing technician, Elizabeth quietly corrected. Michael Foster is sincere, kind, and someone who really listens to me. Robert and Patricia exchanged glances. Their eyes clearly showed disappointment. You could surely find a better match. Patricia was the first to speak. Christina has many wonderful young investment bankers among her colleagues. Harvard and Yale graduates. Michael is the person I've chosen, Elizabeth said quietly as she continued eating. Her voice carried a rare, firm resolve. That night, Elizabeth remembered the day she met Michael a year ago. The museum's pipes had burst, and he came to fix them. The serious look in his eyes as he worked, and the intellectual curiosity he showed about the exhibits after the repairs. After sharing coffee, their relationship developed naturally. Michael listened to her and respected her passions. That was something she couldn't get from her family. Elizabeth returned to her apartment and called Michael. His warm voice penetrated deep into her heart. How did it go? Michael asked. As expected, Elizabeth laughed, looking up at the starry sky outside her window. But it's all right. We have our own life. For the first time in a long while, she felt the joy of being completely herself. On a Saturday afternoon when spring sunlight brightly illuminated the streets of Boston, Elizabeth and Michael were making wedding plans in the living room of their small apartment. On the table were florist catalogs, a pamphlet from a small church, and a handwritten guest list. "How about the last weekend in May?" Elizabeth pointed to the calendar. "It'll be after the big exhibition at the museum, and the weather should be nice." Michael put his arm around her shoulder. "Sounds good. I want a small but heartfelt ceremony. What do your parents think?" Elizabeth hesitated for a moment. 2 weeks after announcing their engagement, there hadn't been a word of congratulations from her parents, not even a phone call. Still, she couldn't help but hold on to hope. "I'll go tell my parents the official date today," she resolved. That evening, Elizabeth visited her parents' home. Sipping coffee in the reception room, she carefully began to speak. "We've decided to have the wedding on May 28. It's going to be a small ceremony, but I'd like the whole family to attend." Robert and Patricia looked at each other. Patricia spoke first. "May 28th, she frowned. "That's Christina's birthday. Such an important day." Elizabeth was surprised. She hadn't realized it was her sister's birthday. "Oh, that's right, I forgot. Well, we could change the date a bit." "Change?" Robert raised his voice. "You shouldn't change Christina's special day. She's planning a grand party for that day." "Is she?" Elizabeth was bewildered. "I didn't know. Then perhaps we should change our date. The weekend before, or no, Elizabeth," Patricia interrupted with a harsh tone. "The problem isn't just the date. We simply cannot bless your marriage to that plumber." "Michael is not a plumber, he's a plumbing technician," Elizabeth quietly corrected. She took a deep breath and continued. "And he's a wonderful person. If you met him and talked with him, you'd understand." "There's no need to meet him," Robert said coldly. "A Monroe daughter marrying such a working-class man. Think of our social standing." At that moment, Christina returned home. She entered the room cheerfully, carrying expensive shopping bags in both hands. "What are you all talking about?" she asked curiously. "Your sister plans to have her wedding on May 28, Patricia explained. "Your birthday." Christina's expression darkened. "What? On my birthday? That's impossible. I've already planned a party at the Plaza Hotel. We've told her we can't attend," Patricia said, moving closer to her daughter. Elizabeth quietly stood up. "I understand. If you can't come, there's nothing to be done about it." Christina looked down at her sister with contemptuous eyes. "And you're really going to marry that plumber? How can you imagine what kind of wedding it will be when he has no money? Probably some cheap DIY thing? Aren't you embarrassed?" Elizabeth felt a pang in her chest. However, she maintained a calm expression as she answered. "Our wedding will be true to who we are. Michael and I love each other for who we are as people, not for appearances or social status." "How touching," Christina said sarcastically. "But face reality. You're a museum employee, he's a plumber. A wedding between the two of you would be an embarrassment to the family." A moment of silence passed. Elizabeth took a deep breath and said quietly, "Fine. If you don't want to come, I respect that. But don't regret it later." There was a strange conviction in those words. But none of the family noticed it. After Elizabeth left, Michael hugged her. "Are you okay?" "Yes." She smiled. "We'll have a wonderful wedding, even if it's just us." Michael gently kissed her hair. "Don't worry. I need you. That's all that matters." Over the next few weeks, Elizabeth and Michael immersed themselves in wedding preparations. They booked a small historic church in the Boston suburbs and planned simple yet elegant decorations. The invitations were handmade, each one imbued with their feelings. Colleagues from the museum and Michael's friends sincerely congratulated them on their marriage and helped with the preparations. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's parents and sister seemed to have forgotten about her wedding as they busied themselves with preparations for Christina's birthday party. Occasionally, messages from her mother contained implications like, "There's still time to reconsider." 2 weeks before the wedding, Elizabeth visited a small boutique for the final fitting of her dress. It was simple yet elegant, highlighting her beauty. "You look absolutely beautiful," the store owner exclaimed. "Your family must be so proud." Elizabeth smiled. "Yes, I'm sure they are." She gazed at her reflection in the mirror. On their wedding day, she and Michael would become a new family. They would build a family that respects and supports each other. With that thought, the sadness of her parents' and sister's absence began to gradually ease. On the last Saturday in May, the small historic church in the Boston suburbs was bathed in gentle morning sunlight. Colorful spring flowers bloomed around the stone church. In a small preparation room, Elizabeth was making final adjustments to her wedding dress, with the help of her friend Jennifer. "You really are beautiful, Elizabeth," Jennifer exclaimed in admiration. "Simple, but perfect for you." Elizabeth gazed at her reflection in the mirror. The ivory silk dress flowed smoothly along her body's lines, with delicate lace decorations adding elegance. "Thank you," she smiled. "I hope Michael likes it. He'll definitely be breathless." Jennifer placed her hand on her friend's shoulder. "But still, your parents not coming." Elizabeth quietly shook her head. "It's all right. Today is Michael's and my day." At that moment, a commotion could be heard from outside the church. Jennifer approached the window and peeked through a gap in the curtains. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed in surprise. "Elizabeth, look outside." Elizabeth rushed to the window. Luxury cars had begun arriving one after another on the street in front of the church. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Ferraris, and even television broadcast vans were parked there. "What's happening?" Elizabeth asked with a confused expression. There was a knock at the door, and David, Michael's best friend, peeked in. He looked a bit nervous. "Elizabeth, I need to talk to you." "David, what's happening outside?" Elizabeth asked. "This is supposed to be our wedding, but it looks like a celebrity event." David took a deep breath and said, "Michael was planning to tell you everything, but it seems time ran out." He smiled slightly. "It's time to reveal Michael's true identity." "True identity?" Elizabeth's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "You'd better hear it from him," David said, as he was about to leave the room. At that moment, noisy voices could be heard from outside. "Wait, please. We are the bride's family." Elizabeth froze at that voice. It was undoubtedly her mother's. "I'm sorry, but you cannot enter without an invitation," came the security guard's reply. "What? We are her parents." This time it was her father's angry voice that echoed. Elizabeth picked up the hem of her dress and hurried into the hallway. At the entrance to the church stood her parents and Christina, their faces drained of color. Her mother was dressed in expensive clothes. Her father wore a formal suit. Christina was wearing a designer dress, clearly having rushed to get ready. "Mother? Father? Why are you here?" Elizabeth asked, trying to appear composed. The three of them turned to Elizabeth at once, their expressions mixed with surprise and confusion. "Elizabeth." Patricia rushed toward her. "What's going on? Why are the Andersons here?" "The Andersons?" Elizabeth asked, looking confused. "This morning's news," Christina said excitedly. It reported that business tycoon on Michael Anderson's wedding would be held today. And the photo of the venue was this church. "I got a message from my friend asking, 'Is it true your sister is marrying an Anderson?'" Christina continued, "At first I thought it was a joke, but it was trending on social media as the wedding of the Anderson heir." "Michael Anderson?" Elizabeth quietly repeated. "Of Anderson Construction." At that moment David appeared again. Behind him was Michael, dressed in an elegant tuxedo. Michael looked into Elizabeth's eyes and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry I didn't have time to tell you," Michael said quietly. Elizabeth approached Michael and said in a low voice, "Michael, what's going on? Are you part of the Anderson family?" He took a deep breath and nodded. "Formally, I'm Michael Anderson Foster, the heir to Anderson Construction." The color drained from Elizabeth's face. Anderson Construction was a global construction company, listed among the Fortune 500. "Why did you keep it secret?" she asked in a faint voice. "I never meant to deceive you." Michael looked at her with sincere eyes. "Before taking over the family business, I was training as a regular plumber to understand the field. And then I met you. You saw me for who I was, not for my status or wealth. That made me happy." Elizabeth was at a loss for words. During their year of dating, there had been mysteries, like how Michael occasionally gave expensive gifts or easily secured reservations at impossible-to-book restaurants. But she had considered these mere coincidences. "But why didn't you tell me?" "When your family refused to accept our relationship because of my occupation, I thought about telling the truth," Michael explained quietly. But it felt like I would be using my wealth and status to prove my worth, and I wanted to be accepted for other reasons. During this conversation, Elizabeth's parents and Christina had been staring at the couple with astonished expressions. Elizabeth, Robert finally spoke up. You didn't know? Elizabeth looked at her father calmly. No, I didn't. But that's not important. I love Michael as a person. Whether he's a plumber or the heir to a major corporation. She turned back to her family and said with a dignified attitude, You weren't invited today, were you? Patricia was flustered. But we're family. Yes, Elizabeth answered gently. But you chose not to come to my wedding. You said my sister's birthday party was more important. Christina blushed. But if we had known, Elizabeth interrupted her. If you had known, you would have come. Then the real reason isn't our love but Michael's social status. A moment of heavy silence fell. Elizabeth took Michael's arm and smiled quietly. I'm glad you came on our special day. Please, come in. We'll arrange seats for you in the back rows. Inside the church, many notable figures were already seated. Politicians, celebrities, and business moguls. Many of them were attending out of gratitude for the Anderson family's charitable activities. Elizabeth's parents and sister were guided to seats in the back row, looking dazed. Their expressions showed regret and embarrassment. Christina especially was stunned to find that the wedding she had mocked as cheap had turned into the biggest celebrity event of the year. Michael squeezed Elizabeth's hand and whispered, Ready? She smiled back. Yes, very much so. To the solemn tones of the pipe organ, Elizabeth began walking down the central aisle of the church. Leading her was Frank, the museum director, who had gladly agreed to give her away in place of her father. On both sides of the church stood Michael's family and friends, business associates, and political dignitaries. But Elizabeth's eyes didn't see them. Her gaze captured only Michael standing at the altar. His eyes reflected warm affection and quiet emotion. At the back of the aisle, Elizabeth's parents and Christina stood with rigid expressions. Complex emotions crossed their eyes. Surprise, regret, and shame. Christina especially was speechless to see that the wedding she had mocked as cheap had become the biggest event in Boston society. When Elizabeth reached the altar, Michael quietly took her hand. You're beautiful, he whispered. As the priest began the ceremony, the church was enveloped in solemn silence. Elizabeth and Michael gazed at each other as they exchanged vows of love and loyalty. Their words of promise were simple yet deeply moving. I loved you as a plumber, Elizabeth said with a smile. And now I love you just the same as the heir to the Anderson family. I love all of you. Tears welled in Michael's eyes. From the moment I met you, I knew true love. You saw me for who I was, not for my status or wealth. You taught me that's what matters most. When the ceremony ended, and the couple began walking down the aisle, applause of congratulations erupted from the attendees. Elizabeth and Michael smiled, showing their gratitude to each person. After leaving the church, the reception began at a lush estate in the Boston suburbs. Michael's parents, Jonathan and Elizabeth Anderson, welcomed guests with expressions full of joy at receiving a new family member. Elizabeth, I'm truly delighted to welcome you into our family. Michael's mother embraced her gently. She was a woman of refinement, yet with a warm personality. When Michael first told us about you, I knew from the sparkle in his eyes that you were someone special. My son is a fortunate man, Michael's father added. He was a gentleman in his mid-60s, with a gentle gaze that showed similarities to Michael. We are truly happy that he found you. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's parents and Christina stood awkwardly in a corner of the reception hall. They clearly looked uncomfortable among the notable guests. We should go see them, Elizabeth said to Michael. After all, they are my family. Michael gently held her hand. Let's go together. As they approached, Patricia looked at them with an expression close to tears. Elizabeth, her voice broke. Thank you for your congratulations, Elizabeth said quietly. Robert cleared his throat and began speaking with difficulty. We misunderstood. Michael, about you. It's not a problem, Michael replied politely. I should have been completely honest as well. Christina was looking at the floor, embarrassed. Sis, I am sorry for saying such terrible things. Today is a day of blessing, Elizabeth answered gently. Let's forget the past. The highlight of the reception was the speech by the bride and groom. Michael stood up and took his glass. Today, I feel the greatest happiness of my life, he began in a calm voice. When I met Elizabeth, I was hiding who I was. That's because I wanted to find someone who would see the real me. He looked at Elizabeth. And I was loved by Elizabeth as a mere plumber. That is my pride. His words were met with warm applause from the audience. Next, Elizabeth stood up. When judging people, we are often misled by superficial things, she began quietly. Occupation, status, wealth. But what truly matters is a person's essence. Michael taught me the importance of that. She looked around the room, momentarily sending a glance toward her family. Love is truly understanding and accepting another person. Today, we have gathered to celebrate that love. Her words became a scathing irony toward her family. However, they also showed the possibility of reconciliation. Toward the end of the reception, Elizabeth was spending some time alone in the garden. Her parents approached her. "Elizabeth," her mother called out in a trembling voice. "We are truly sorry. We never understood you," her father continued. His voice contained a humility rarely heard. "We didn't respect your values and imposed our own ideas. Please forgive us." Elizabeth looked at her parents. Their eyes showed genuine regret. "Today is not a day to seek forgiveness, but to celebrate," she answered quietly. "But the door to rebuild our relationship is always open." Patricia, with tears in her eyes, embraced her daughter. "Thank you, Elizabeth." As moonlight illuminated the garden, Christina joined them. She offered her sister a small gift box. "This was part of my birthday present. But today, I want to give it to you." When Elizabeth opened the box, there was a beautiful antique brooch. "Grandmother gave it to me," Christina explained. "She told me to give it to someone truly precious someday. I realized that person is you." Elizabeth hugged her sister. "Thank you, Christina." At this moment, Michael joined them. He smiled gently and put his arm around Elizabeth's waist. "Family, I look forward to our future together," he said calmly. Stars shone in the night sky as new family bonds were quietly being formed. Elizabeth felt in her heart that today meant more than just a wedding. For her, it was a day that gave her the courage to accept her true self and to demand the same from others. Michael whispered in her ear, "Happy?" Elizabeth smiled. "Yes, very much." A year after their marriage in spring, an opening ceremony was held in the special exhibition room of the Boston Museum of Art for an exhibition titled Community and Creativity as a Bridge. Elizabeth Anderson Foster, arm in arm with Michael, was conversing with invited guests. Her face showed fulfillment and quiet pride. "This exhibition is wonderful, Elizabeth," Patricia Munro said, standing close to her daughter. "It's truly meaningful to give young local artists an opportunity." Elizabeth smiled at her mother. "Thank you, Mom." Over this year, the relationship between Elizabeth and her family had gradually changed. It would still take time to build complete trust, but the first step had definitely been taken. Her parents now participated in monthly Sunday brunches and visited Elizabeth and Michael's new home more frequently. "Elizabeth." Christina ran over from across the exhibition room. She carried a bundle of documents in her arms. "The NGO representatives have agreed. They'll participate in the Anderson Foster Foundation's next project." Christina had quit her Wall Street job and now worked at the charitable foundation established by Elizabeth and Michael. Her sharp business sense and energy had become a driving force in promoting the foundation's activities. "That's wonderful news," Elizabeth hugged her sister. Her relationship with her sister had also changed dramatically. The former competitiveness and jealousy had disappeared, and they were now sisters who recognized each other's talents and cooperated. Christina had come to be ashamed of her actions and moved away from career-first thinking, understanding the importance of human relationships. "That's wonderful," Elizabeth Anderson, Michael's mother, approached. "Your collaboration is bearing fruit." Michael's parents had taught Elizabeth what true parental love was. They were always supportive of the young couple while respecting their independence. "Any news about grandchildren yet?" Elizabeth Anderson gently inquired. Elizabeth and Michael looked at each other and smiled. "Actually," Michael said in a lowered voice, "we have good news." That same evening, at a dinner at home, Elizabeth stood up with a wine glass in hand. Gathered around the table were Michael's parents, her own parents, and Christina. "I have an announcement for everyone," she said in a soft voice. "We are going to have an addition to our family." Joyful voices and applause resonated through the room. Jonathan, Michael's father, embraced his son's shoulders with visible emotion. Congratulations, son. Elizabeth felt that this was the true image of family. Not just blood ties, but relationships of mutual respect and support. She was now surrounded by two families and about to start her own new family. That night, looking up at the starry sky with Michael on the terrace, Elizabeth quietly said, "It's strange, isn't it? If my parents had come to the wedding, would things have changed like this?" Michael embraced her. "Sometimes people only realize what's precious after they've lost it." Elizabeth nodded. In her heart was not regret for the past, but hope for the future. The family she and Michael would build would learn from past mistakes and be founded on love and respect. "I want to teach our child the importance of being oneself," Elizabeth said quietly. "And that true value lies not in titles or status, but in the person themselves," Michael added. In the gentle embrace of moonlight, Elizabeth felt truly happy. Life has unexpected turns. In her case, it wasn't just the surprise that the man she thought was a plumber turned out to be a wealthy heir, but also a journey to re-examine her relationship with her family and learn about true love and respect. "I love you, Elizabeth," Michael whispered. "I love you too," she answered. "Now and always."